Welcome back, everybody. Now I'm very pleased to introduce our guests, showrunner, executive producer, and writer Matthew B. Roberts, Caitriona Balfe, who of course plays Claire Fraser and who has been Golden Globe nominated 4 times for this role, and the Critics' Choice Award nominated Sam Heughan, who you'll all know very well as Jamie Fraser. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here today.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
What an intense episode this was. I have to admit, I did have to look away a couple of times. It was some hard going. Now, Matthew, I know you partnered with Rain, the sexual assault hotline, for this episode. Can you talk a little bit about the decision to do that and how helpful that was in navigating the scenes with Claire's abduction?
Well, we knew we were going to do this episode from the very beginning of the season, and we wanted to be very careful with it. So when Tony Graffia and I started writing, we started doing as much research as we possibly could. We have, in the past, on Outlander, as we know, we've dealt with rape and sexual assault and many kinds of assaults on the show. So we have a lot of consultants that we can go to, over the past 6 years that we've been doing this. We've had a lot of consultants that we've talked to and really mine their expertise before we even start the process.
Absolutely. And Caitriona, how much did you kind of get from that partnership with Rain, and were they supportive, helpful in some way? Did you learn from them at all?
Hugely. I mean, I think anytime you tackle the issue of sexual violence or rape, you want to do it the most responsible way that you possibly can. And I think something that we've always done on Outlander is try to take a point of view and highlight something that can be somewhat helpful in terms of starting a conversation. I mean, when we did season 1, the idea of male rape, which was so unusual to see on TV, and with this particular storyline, when Matt came to talk to us about it and started talking about the idea of disassociation, which is also something that you don't often see when rape is being handled. So we talked a lot with Rain about how we could approach this, and also just in terms of making sure that we had trigger warnings before the episode. So you never want to do something like this and not give people the opportunity to kind of go into it with their eyes open and know what they're going to see. And I think it's really important to all of us when we approach any kind of subject matter like this, that we do it in the most responsible way possible.
Mm-hmm. And for both you and Sam, I have an audience member question from Mitch. The scenes are so emotional in this episode. Do you need time to recover? How do you handle those?
I'd like to answer that one
first. I definitely think when you're dealing with really heavy subject matter, you do go to quite dark places within yourself, and I think there's always a certain amount of purging of it that you have to do. But I think the healthiest way to be able to do this job is to also be able to leave these things at the door when you leave during the day. I think using your own psyche and mining your own emotions can be, if you're not careful, you can do yourself psychological damage. So I think it's important early on when you do this job that you learn how to separate your own life and your life at work. I mean, at least for me.
Yeah, and I think, we have such a safe environment. I think, all credit to Matt and to Tony and to our amazing director, Jamie Payne, who dealt with this with great sensitivity and gave, I think, a really safe platform for us to explore these themes. And I think, when you have this community, when you have this close-knit group of people working closely together, I think, therefore, we can open up more and we can explore these things deeper. So, yeah, credit to everyone that was involved in these. I think if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be able to maybe go to those more challenging places.
Mm-hmm. Matthew, I was so curious about the sort of disassociation scenes where we see Claire and Jamie in this sort of 60s, 70s house with this music and the kind of super bright colors. Tell me how that all came together for you.
Well, it started at the beginning of the season when we break out the entire season. We knew where we wanted to end, and we wanted to end with this particular event. And Tony and I talked about how to, really what we wanted to do is give an escape for both, the character and the audience, but we wanted it to be a survival technique. And what we did is we did a ton of research about this, and we found out that people who suffer traumas, and it's not only sexual assault, it's all kinds of traumas, that they disassociate with what's going on in front of them as a survival technique. And we started to break the story, and I went to Cat and Sam in, I believe it was Caitriona's trailer one day, and told them about the idea. And I think they, I mean, I could be wrong, but I think they really liked the idea. And I think Caitriona, if I remember correctly, didn't want to shy away from the assault. And we dug into it even more when we talked to them about it. And I think what we tried to do, and then Jamie Payne came on board as our director, and we wrote out the 60s. We had to pick a time period so Gary Steele and Trisha Bigger could design it. We couldn't just arbitrarily say she disassociates. So we had to pick a period, and we decided when she came back from. But we didn't want it to be specific. So I asked them both to mess it up. And if you watch the episode, you'll notice that there are pieces in one scene, in the what we call dream escapes, that are messed up. So there'll be objects in one scene that aren't there anymore. And if you look at young Ian's uniform, he has wampum beads instead of, military ribbons. So we decided to really, because Claire was in such a state, she wasn't imagining this as a perfect place. It was just her escape to get away from. And it was a team effort amongst everybody. I think everybody brought their best to this one. We spent a lot of time doing a lot of meetings with Jamie. I met with Jamie on the weekends. Cat and Sam brought a lot to the table, and I had ideas about what it would look like, and how it would feel. We wrote out a bunch of dialogue for it, and it really, over the shooting, it just got, trimmed down. So, to really what it is. And then when we got to editing, we even trimmed it down even more. So, it was a really big team effort, and everybody from every designer and the crew and all the cast really dug in on this one, and I'm very proud of it.
Mm-hmm. Talking about these incredible sets, I know we were chatting a little bit about it before this panel began. And I actually had an audience question from Laurie about this. This is the last season for your production designer, John Gary Steele, and he created every set that we've seen over the years. It must be really hard to say goodbye. One of the Outlander family. Do you have a favorite set that you recall, and why? That's for everyone.
Sam?
I know. We've just had this discussion, so I know what you guys are going to answer be. So mine's going to be slightly different, but mine would be the Great Hall season 1, Castle Leo. It's just I remember it because it was such an impact on me. As sort of quite green coming into this show, and just seeing the dedication and detail that he put into it. I mean, he had taken castings, I believe, from the local castle, Doon Castle, and then recreated this hall, and the chandeliers were stag's heads, and there was just so many amazing little details. The sawdust and the dirt on the ground, and then of course everything gets completely destroyed after 4 weeks of filming or whatever it is. So it just was overwhelming. And that was the first impression of Gary's work. But to be honest, every time he's kind of increased the bar, and he's just outdone himself. And he's going to be a great loss, but he was a remarkable man to work with.
Yeah, it's so hard to choose. I mean, there's such an embarrassment of choices. But I actually Master Raymond's Apothecary in France in season 2 was incredible. It's just, I mean, I think the thing with Gary and all of his work is how much it helps us in our work. And you would go on to any set and just the attention to detail and all of those little things that just make the world so alive and so available to you. So much of your work of imagination of putting yourself in a place is already done.
Yeah. One of the things that Gary and his team used to do is, you know, you could go into a drawer and the drawer would be filled with things, or a cupboard and it would be filled with things. And his mindset is, I don't know where the actors are going to go. I don't know what they're going to do. And I want, if they go to a drawer, there should be something in it. If they go to a cupboard, there should be something in it. And that's just, like Kat said, that's the attention to detail. I mean, if you look at, for me, you know, the Star Chamber jumps out as in just, it's a work of art. And it's just so sad to tear it down. We wish we would have kept it up forever. But it really is, walking into that for the first time, you looked at it when it was fully lit, you were in awe. But, you know, the Boston apartment, it was just amazing with the detail. The French where Jamie and Claire lived in France was stunning. You know, you had the brothel, you have Wilmington streets, you have the Paris streets that they designed. So the list, like Kat said, the list goes on and on and on. And I think for a lot of us, every time we walked onto a new set, it's not that you forgot the old sets, but you went, wow, you outdid yourself. Yeah, and that was one thing that Gary did. We always wanted to do this for the audience and for the cast, is to give them that new world. So when they reach the new world, you're in it, whether it be Paris or the Caribbean or the New World. When we went down to South Africa, Gary redid Jamaica for everybody, and the ships. I mean, the detail was crazy. So kudos to Gary and his entire team. So he will be
actually just as an actor, you know, going on set, as you said, Matt, like, you felt at home there. You know, you maybe had only just been there, and you instantly have to pretend this is where you've spent, you know, a lot of time, and you just felt at home because of all those details. And he also brought a lot of the characters, I guess, individual characters into certain elements of the sets as well. I mean, you know, Claire's surgery and all these places. I mean, they had so much detail. So yeah, we were very lucky to work with them.
I really loved the whole medical side of things that we saw Claire doing this season. Caitriona, I'm told that you got quite into it with the research and understanding it. Is that the case? Like, what was it like? And can you now do surgery?
She's practicing now, aren't you? Yeah.
Still in at home.
I've joined the front lines of the NHS. No,
yes, essential worker.
I had a stomach ache one day, and she actually wanted to take out my appendix. It was just, you know,
I don't know why you did that.
Sushi. Yeah, I know.
No, it's one of the elements that I do find really fascinating. I mean, it's amazing what they have on YouTube and how many different procedures you can watch. Or I remember when we did like Jenny's breech birth in season 1, I just fell down a YouTube hole for a couple of hours watching all of these breech births and people turning babies inside the stomach. But no, it's really fascinating, and I love that this season we got to see Claire really, you know, kind of invest all that time again in her role as a healer and a doctor and a surgeon, and you know, her sort of fight to first of all rediscover penicillin, or cultivate penicillin, I suppose. You know, I think it's fascinating. I think it's something it's an interesting element of our show, where you have this person who has all of this foreknowledge of medical procedures from the future and gets to implement them, but yet has to constantly battle with how much she can show her hand, because it's also so dangerous. And as we see at the end of the season, you know, it really costs her. But it's it's an element of the show I really enjoy.
And Sam, you know, it was really hard to see Jamie this season because he's such a man of honor and integrity. Like, that's his whole identity, you know. And you see him so torn in this season. You know, he's putting on the red coat. He loses his beloved Myrta, and is unable to protect Claire. And you have to have all this emotion that is bubbling beneath the surface. How did you get in that headspace of all that kind of contained rage and pain and everything that he goes through?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think the Myrta storyline, excuse me, was, you know, it's not a part of Diana Gabaldon's books, but I think for me and for Jamie, this is like one of the strongest storylines we've had for him for a while, because this dichotomy he's in, you know, he is a man of honor. He's, you know, Myrta's of his blood, and I think, you know, Jamie's losing a part of himself there. He's losing a part of his connection to Scotland, his father figure, you know, his confidant, someone that's been there from the beginning. And I know we've all loved working not only with Duncan Lacroix, who just is, you know, one of the greats of great characters of Outlander, but his character as well, you know, was a really fortuitous kind of storyline that I think also brought the regulator story. It kind of brought it home to the viewer as well. You know, it really put a sort of face to the two sides and the dichotomy that Jamie was in. And then, of course, you know, at the end, you know, sort of seeing Red Jamie kind of, yeah, just doing everything, going to battle for Claire, I think, was again just another great storyline. And I think that's what the great thing about Outlander is, that we have these huge emotional arcs, we have huge stories, and each season it seems to get, you know, more complicated and more involved. But it's great, you know, it's a gift to us from the writers and from Diana.
You know, I do wonder, you guys have played these roles for, you know, 6 years or so now. Do you find yourselves talking in their rhythms and kind of feeling like you're in the role when you're not in the role? Are you kind of attached and bonded to these roles?
Definitely attached, but no, I don't run around saying Jesus ate Roosevelt Christ.
You should. I think maybe you should.
Yes. I should try and do that in my real life. No, I think you know, we've definitely become so protective and so ingrained in these characters that they feel very organic to us at this point. But you know, well, I'm sure everyone else will disagree, but I don't think I'm quite as hot-headed and big-mouthed as Claire.
It's interesting, but actually, you know, I think I'm probably the same, and you know, we've become very attached. And I think even right now, with everything that's going on in the world, you know, I think we're realizing, you know, more and more how much we love our job, how much we love our family on Outlander. I wonder what the writers, what Matt, you know, if they now think of the characters with a certain voices or the way myself and Caitriona do it. I think, you know, a lot of them do now. You know, I see that they start to write the sort of the mannerisms that we have. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, in the season one, certainly early on in season one, we did write to you guys, in a sense.
Yeah.
You know, and then we wrote, and then as the seasons go on and on and on, there are certain things that you guys do, and then we write to those things, and we you know, but it's always, you know, a collaboration between, you know, writer, director, actor, you know, the whole, you know, the whole group of us. So yeah, I think we try to, but you know, we have a great, you know, starting point with the books, and we do what we can, and there's a lot of fantastic, you know, dialogue that we try to pull right out of the books, and I know Kat and Sam, you know, try to do that as much as possible when we're telling these stories. So.
You touched on the costumes a little bit earlier when you were talking about the 1960s house scene, but But this is the first season with Trisha Bigger, right? As your costume designer.
Yeah.
Do you guys have some favorite costumes from this season? I have to say that I think in this, I forget if it was episode 10, but Claire is wearing this amazing full long skirt with a pistol tucked into her belt. Like it's like an accessory. I mean, some of the looks and the coats, and it's all just so amazing. Do you have favorites?
Yeah, I mean, I think Trisha has done an incredible job this season. You know, I don't think it's the easiest thing to come in sort of this deep into a show and to be able to put your own stamp on things while also respecting what has gone before. And I think she's been able to do that really beautifully. And for me, I mean, for Claire, you know, I do that blue sort of riding coat that I have is really, really stunning. But, equally, there's one that's kind of like a green suit that almost has this nautical kind of feel to it, which I thought was really beautiful. But, you know, working with her, especially for Ep 12, was really fantastic because we talked a lot about the emotion and you know, picking that color and how we sort of found that silhouette, because we wanted it to be something quite simple but striking and have that, you know, red, the color of danger, red, the color of alert, and all of those things. And it was just, you know, it's great having her here and being able to sort of collaborate in those ways.
What about you, Sam? You had some awesome season.
I mean, some awesome costumes this season, and you know, we see the return of the kilt, which I think was something that we all, you know, were wanting to see, and it was just about finding the right place for that. But and actually, the red coat for me, you know, was a big one. Again, going back to that storyline, and it had so much symbolism behind it, and everything that Jamie's fought against. But I agree, yeah, Trisha, she was great at collaborating. She really was, and probably the most sort of striking piece for me is the coat you see in the last, almost the last scenes there, when Jamie goes back to Brownsville. He has this long leather jacket, and it's pretty awesome. I kind of want to steal it for my real life, but yeah.
Well, now you ruined it, because when it goes missing, we'll know where to find it.
When it goes missing, you know, yeah. When you see me out wearing that, but she's been fantastic to collaborate with, and very easy to work with, and just I think she's done a great job.
So I have another audience member question from Jan. Since season 1 in 2014, what do you feel you've learned as actors?
Nothing. Absolutely.
I was going to say everything. Everything and nothing.
Everything. About nothing.
Oh God, I mean, I was so green. I had hardly done anything before I started Outlander, so I've learned all the technical terms, what a mark is, all of those things. No, I think one of the greatest things about being on a show for this long and having the sort of environment that we have with Outlander is to, first of all, trust yourself, but also allow yourself to constantly be surprised. I think by our characters, by storylines, you know, it's not very often that you get this long to tell a story, and it's really lovely to continually be learning new things about your character.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would agree totally. You know, it's impossible to be complacent on the show. As I said, you know, it's constantly moving. It's gone from Scotland through France to the Caribbean and now in America, and it feels like a completely different show. You know, we're talking about America now in its infancy, and there's so many parallels going on right now. But it's been a great show to learn on, and I think Caitriona and I, you know, coming in very green, we've experienced a lot, you know, and I think it's also given us great opportunity as well, and great people to work with. You know, we've learned a lot from our co-stars and our writers and our showrunners. So it's been it's been a good experience. I just wish we were 20 years younger.
Don't we all? So this is really one for Matthew, but you guys, I'd love to hear from you. If you could throw the book out, what would you do with Claire and Jamie and Brianna and Roger? What would happen? and you can all answer this, but
this is good. Yeah.
Well, I would probably, given this moment in time, I would probably have them set sail for maybe Hawaii and set up some sort of medical facility and then
on the beach.
On the beach, somewhere on the beach.
Jamie invents surfing, maybe.
Yeah.
Claire goes into medicinal cocktails.
Yes, wonderful.
Bree open up a little Palapa Cabana thing, something like. I think if being serious, to throw out the book, I don't know, given the state of the world, I would probably just have them go back to Scotland and do something in Scotland and be in the Highlands, or just because that's where we film and we may be able to control the world a little better there. I know that we're all dying to get back to work, but I don't know. Kat, Sam, do you guys throw out the book? I never even thought of it.
I don't know. I'm really into your Hawaii idea.
Yeah.
I'm sold on that.
Yeah. A little medicinal.
I don't know. I think throwing out the book, I wouldn't want to incur the wrath of Diana Gabaldon and her amazing fans.
Yeah.
So I think, but I mean, I think we'll miss Scotland, in the character of Scotland. And I think, it would be nice to sort of revisit some of that early season stuff.
Now, I did just mention the character of Brianna, who's obviously played by the brilliant Sophie Skelton. And that sort of leads me to another audience question from JLS, who says, what is a particular scene for you, Caitriona, with Brie that you found challenging this season? There's some great scenes with you guys.
I found challenging. I'm not sure. I mean, I always love when Sophie and I get to work together. She's so amazing and we always have such a good time. I think I just love when they get to be really supportive. And I think you see this with coming from where their relationship started in season 2, when there was such a gulf between them, to now when Brianna's really struggling with Roger, that Claire is there to be able to, give her advice and be the mother that she always wished she could be. But then on the flip of that, you see Brianna be very much this kind of sage fountain of advice for Claire very often. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure if they're challenging. They've just been really enjoyable.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to mention the peanut butter jelly sandwich scene and how you just,
which also was not challenging because we enjoyed eating those so much.
Just ate them all.
I love it. It's so funny. So I also know that you guys were both producers this season. How has that added to your experience on the show, taking on that?
We have a new bar backstage. It's very busy.
You approved this bar?
Yes, yeah, I've been quite busy with that. But no, I think we both we got the credit, which has been fantastic, and just to be involved in the production meetings and been consulting with Matt and the other writers, and just to have more of an input. I think we've learned a lot from seeing how much prep goes on. Some of the specifics as well. It really is quite a jigsaw piece and such a huge show. So it's been really important for us to see part of that, and also I think probably Ep 12 was where you see the most of our influence, because we were really back and forth with Matt and Tony and Jamie, and it was tough material, but I think really rewarding for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we've been in such a unique position where Sam and I, since day one on this show, have sort of been the two characters with which the story has been told. And it, as season 3, season 4 started, we started to open up that world a lot more and give sort of other characters these storylines, which I think has benefited our show so much. And it's also given Sam and I the opportunity to maybe take on more responsibility. And for me, I think, I always want to be growing no matter where I am, and I don't want to sort of stay static. And so this just seemed like such an amazing opportunity to keep learning and see where we can be of benefit to the show. And hopefully, Matt, we have been and not pains in the asses, but I do think we have our writers' room in LA, and we have quite a lot of new writers and producers, over the seasons. And the fact that we've kind of been this constant, as Matt has and Meryl since day one, I think that's really been of a benefit to kind of keep the core of our show and the sort of essence of our show sort of always at the forefront.
Well, I just want to say thank you all so much for being here. I can't wait to see what you do next. I hope this show just goes on forever. It never gets old. So just keep at it. And thank you so much for everything today. It's been really enjoyable.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Antonia.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.